in Lincoln, Boston and Grantham.
BBC Radio Lincolnshire.
And with your latest news, here's Richard Madden.
Councillors in East Lindsey are holding a meeting to call for a vote of no confidence in the trust which runs hospitals right across Lincolnshire. The motion has accused the United Lincolnshire Hospitals Trust of failing to resolve issues over the past decade. But the trust has told BBC Radio Lincolnshire it will not comment on the situation and is reassuring patients they're getting the best possible care. Here's Councillor Tony Howard.
I've attended several meetings and listened to what's being said about the children's services at Pilgrim Hospital, and frankly, I've not found any straight answers coming.
In other news this evening, the family of a man found hanged in his cell at Lincoln Prison say they're shattered by the outcome of a second inquest into his death. Luke MacDonald died in hospital after he was found in his cell 3 years ago. After an inquest lasting 10 days, a jury concluded he'd killed himself, but said there's no evidence that the prison's processes contributed to his death. The Christian owners of a Belfast bakery at the centre of a gay cake argument say they're relieved that the Supreme Court has ruled in their favour. Ash's Bakery was accused of discrimination for refusing to make a cake with a slogan supporting same-sex marriage. Simon Calvert is from the Christian Institute, a charity which has been helping to fund the bakery's defence.
It's a ruling that strongly underlines the great British tradition of freedom of speech, so that whoever you are or whatever you believe, if you're in business, you can't be dragged through the courts for people to try and force you to help promote ideas that are fundamentally opposed to your own.
The bodyguard who shot the Westminster Bridge attacker has broken down in court as he described the incident, giving evidence anonymously. He said he opened fire when he saw Khalid Massoud running towards him, carrying 2 knives which were covered in blood. The EU's chief Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier, says he's doing his best to reach a deal for an orderly Brexit. At Westminster, 10 of the DUP's MPs are believed to have threatened to vote against this month's budget if a damaging backstop is agreed. And the carousel ride at Pleasure Island in Cleethorpes has finally been sold. In March, a man bid £180,000 for the historic ride at auction, but then said he'd pressed the button by mistake. Now a private buyer has paid a 6-figure sum for the ride, which has stood silent for 2 years. Auctioneer Carl Vince says it's going to be staying in the country as well.
Pleasure Island management team have asked us to withdraw it from the auction. It has been sold to a private individual somewhere in the UK. We don't know where yet. And yes, the saga has come to an end. It's finally sold.
BBC weather: cloud will build up tonight, bringing the chance of a few showers and lows of 10 Celsius, and any rain will clear tomorrow morning to leave sunny spells, but there is more wet weather on the way.
Amy Claridge's Lincolnshire Kitchen
On BBC Radio Lincolnshire.
We're getting sticky this evening and with lots to learn about honey, including mass production. It's going to be very interesting.
What's the sense in sharing this one and only life? Ending up just another lost and lonely wife. You count up the years and they will be filled with tears. Love only breaks up to start over again. You'll get the babies, but you won't have your man. While he's busy loving every woman that he can. Say I'm gonna leave 100 times a day. It's easier said than done when you just can't break away.
Young Hearts Run Free, Candy Staton. It's Lincolnshire Kitchen. Thank you very much for your company this evening. We are talking about honey, and we're going to learn about mass production of honey, which our guest this evening does not do. But I'm very, very interested to learn more. And I've just had a quick chat with him before I came in, and he has just a wealth of knowledge. So I'm so looking forward to sharing it with you. I've also been in my kitchen. I've been baking. I haven't done some baking for you for quite a while, so I hope you enjoy it. And the recipe this evening is honey tea loaf. Now, that's coming up a little bit later, but would you like the recipe? If you would like the recipe, it's all typed up and ready to go. We can email it to you, or we can pop it in the post to you, whatever suits you. And also, we can let you have a copy of the 2 curries from last week, if you missed that. These are the 2 Lincolnshire curries that were done for Lincolnshire Day by Derek Clements of Curry Jack. So if you'd like either of those, you know what to do.
Call 08000 665 949. Text 81333 and start your message with the letters LN. Texts are charged at your standard message rate. See our privacy notice at bbc.co.uk/local radio privacy.
So give us a call and we will get that to you. We'll email them or we will pop them in the post. Maria is here and she'll take your call and we'll whiz those to you so you can be baking that recipe as soon as you like, perhaps even tomorrow or even tonight. I did some baking very late last night. I absolutely love late night baking. It's so relaxing. It's lovely. Lady, Hear Me Tonight, Mojo. It's Lincolnshire Kitchen. It's 12 minutes past 7. Now, if you're new to Lincolnshire Kitchen because we are on a sort of a later slot and on a Wednesday. Every week we have a really, really interesting guest in the studio who's one of the county's food producers. It could be a baker, it could be a chef, it could be a farmer, it could be somebody with animals, it could be anything. There's such a lot of choice out there. But this evening, my guest is Paul Horton. Now, he's an award-winning beekeeper and he's a honey producer, and he's from Winterton, which is near Scunthorpe. Now, 2 of his honeys are the only ones given a Great Taste Award in Lincolnshire, from what I can see, and that's from the Guild of Fine Food. This is serious stuff. And I looked at his website, and there's just such a raft of awards on there. He's clearly extremely accomplished, and it's just lovely to have him here to sort of share his story with you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It's lovely. It's absolutely joyful to have you here. And I must say, one thing that you didn't mind me saying to you outside was, I mean, not that I know millions of beekeepers, but you seem quite young for a beekeeper.
I guess I am, yeah. I think I do bring the average age down a bit, probably nationally, actually. So, yeah.
But saying that, it's something you've grown up with, isn't it? Tell us about your childhood and bees.
Well, I guess I'm quite lucky in that I was brought up around bees. My father was been a bee farmer most of his life since he was in his teenage years, really. And I grew up with that as a kid, and I was around bees, and that gave me a start, I guess, an understanding that I wouldn't normally have had of bees if I hadn't been brought up with it.
Was your dad, or your dad's still beekeeping, isn't he? Is he a bee farmer? Does he have lots of them, or is he like a small producer or a hobbyist? What sort of bee levels were you growing up with?
He started small. He started when schools used to have bees in the schoolyards and things like that, and then he built up as he got older. And when I was growing up, he had 300 or 400 hives, so a lot of bees.
300 or 400.
Yeah.
That is a lot, isn't it?
It's quite a lot, yeah.
And was that in Lincolnshire?
That was in Lincolnshire, yeah, not far from where I live now. So
we're looking at sort of up north Lincolnshire
that's right,
way.
yeah, northern end.
What's your first recollection or memory of bees?
It's a traumatic memory, actually. It stayed with me. Put it like this. I can remember when I was a baby, my mum tells me I was maybe 18 months old, and I can remember it vividly, a bee crawling up my nose. It didn't sting me, but I can still remember it.
So you remembered the sensation?
Yeah, and that was 18 months old, I'm told. So
Isn't that curious? And it presumably just crawled back out again.
You'd think that would have put me off for life, wouldn't you? But
I have been very lucky enough to. I've had a sort of a close-up experience of bees with another Lincolnshire beekeeper, Simon Crowson, and he invited me to come and see his hives. And I put all the gear on, and I must admit they didn't. I wasn't scared at all. I mean, I had all the gear on, but they were right up near me, and they were gentle.
Yeah.
That's the word I would give them, and I wasn't expecting that.
Many people don't expect them to be like that, and in some cases they're not. Some cases they can be aggressive if they're protecting something. They are like people, where not personalities, but different behaviours sometimes. And you usually are well protected in a bee suit, but sometimes the sensation and the noises are quite scary sometimes to people that aren't used to it.
The sound of all the buzzing was just rhythmic. It was beautiful, and I could have listened to a recording of that and sort of fallen asleep to it. Yeah. It was a beautiful sound. There were sort of fluctuations in it where the bees are moving around and moving, away from me and near me. But it was a lovely, lovely experience.
It's more of a hum than a buzz, I think.
Yes,
it is. I find it lovely as well. Yeah.
So there you are, 18 months old. Bee crawling up your nose, and then you won't remember anything for ages. But when you were sort of a young child, sort of presumably sort of school age, did your dad rope you in to help?
He did, yeah. I was always helping out with the bees, reluctantly, but I helped out until I was well into my teens. And harvesting honey, moving the hives, things like that, extracting honey, things like that. The things that you would have to learn to do, but I picked them up because I was around it,
Yeah, it became natural.
Yeah.
Did you see yourself working with bees?
Definitely not. It was actually the last thing I ever wanted to do. But,
how funny.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Was your dad encouraging you, and you were sort of, oh, no, and then there you are.
He started to struggle towards the end of his sort of big beekeeping career, let's say, and when I got involved to spend a bit more time, I guess that's when I really started to enjoy it, because I was doing everything, not just jobs. I was doing the entire thing, and it. After a year or two, I did really start to love it, and.
What was it about it that was making you fall in love with beekeeping?
That's a difficult question, actually, because there's so many aspects to beekeeping. I think it's just seeing what they do, and they are incredible creatures in what they can accomplish. And I don't know, actually. That's a good question. I've never really thought about it. But
so it was a sort of a fairly slow process. It sounds like the bees sort of adopted you in a way.
That's probably more right.
Yeah, they knew that you'd fall for them in the end. So you kind of you sort of grew up, and what happened next?
When I started with the bees for myself?
I'm dying for you to tell us about the bee inspector job.
Bee inspector
because
job.
who knew that there was a job out there called a bee inspector?
There is a team of people that are based up in York that work for the government, and they are the ones that I guess tasked with actually protecting bees and finding diseases and pests and trying to manage these and control these. And we're quite unique in that we have the only bee inspectorate in the world that's government run. And,
in England or
in the world,
in the
entire world. And if you've seen it on the news or in articles recently with the Asian hornet, these are the people that are finding these nests and destroying these nests of this invasive hornet.
Oh,
so yeah.
So you're a little bit like a spy, an MI5 type spy, or a bodyguard,
a beekeeping hit squad.
Yes, you are, aren't you? You're out there silently driving around the countryside, protecting the bees. I didn't know such a thing existed, but I'm rather warmed by it. The fact that there is a government department out there to protect the bees.
Yeah.
Because that just seems intrinsically very sensible to me.
It's important, They're doing a good job, and I was quite proud to be part of it.
Do you think the people that are bee inspectors have changed the landscape of bees that we see now?
Certainly. I mean, this group was set up during the war to manage diseases, and I think certainly even early on, if they hadn't have done the work they did, the landscape of beekeeping would be completely different now, and that's still ongoing. They're constantly fighting diseases and pests that are there to damage bees and beekeeping.
Is it a coincidence that it was started during the war?
I think I don't know the story exactly, but I think it may have been something to do with the sugar rationings as much as diseases. I think it was a case of actually checking if people were keeping bees, because obviously during the war people got extra sugar for their bees if they kept bees.
So if they kept bees, they were given extra sugar as a ration?
to feed them, just in case.
Oh, right,
and obviously they were producing honey, which is a valuable thing during the war, a sugar substitute, so.
And were they quite key as well in terms of we needed to grow our own? It was particularly important during that period of time. Yeah. Was it another aspect of the bees that they were needed for their pollination and their kind of doing the bee, the whole part of the cycle that they are?
The pollination is very important. I think it always has been, and it's maybe undervalued, I think. But they contribute a lot to agriculture and farming and growing of fruits and things like that and vegetables. So yeah, it would have been important.
So when did you decide to give up that fantastic job title of bee inspector and to go off and become what to me seems like a really established... It was about 10 years ago, was it?
Yeah, I've been doing it quite a while now, and like I say, I was lucky in that I had a better understanding of bees when I first got going, so that gave me a head start, I think.
That must have helped.
Yeah, but I stopped bee inspecting about this time last year. It was becoming difficult to do that job and manage my own bees. Both jobs are very time consuming, and I had to concentrate on one. And I chose the bees.
Your business is called Apidae Honey, which is Apidae is a family of species of bees, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Because it does sound slightly like me with my Essex accent without the H saying Happy Day.
Well, that was the reasoning behind it. I like the sound of it. It sounded nice,
It does sound very, very jolly. It's lovely. If you could just sort of describe what that business looks like now, how many sort of hives and...
We're just over 300 hives now, so we are quite established, quite a lot of colonies, and we're completely kitted up to move bees all across the country, and for pollination reasons and for producing specific honeys. So I know what I'm doing, and I'm getting better at it every year. Always learning and always improving.
What do you mean by kitted up? Have you got special vehicles? Is there some kind of equivalent of a Batman car out there, but B-Man?
A Beamobile.
Is there a Beamobile?
There isn't a Beamobile as such, but it takes a lot of coordination in moving a beehive. If you think about it, it's not an obvious thing to do.
No.
But it's more the process of it and things like that, rather than a special van.
Yes. You see, I'm slightly disappointed now. What you tell me? I've got this yellow and black van that drives round but that's just me and my overactive imagination.
There's an idea for next van.
Exactly. People would wave to you, wouldn't they? It's intriguing. We're going to chat a bit about the mass production of honey. Now, when I go into either a supermarket or you go into one of those discount type stores, there is always, without fail, squeezy bottles of honey, and it's not expensive. It's £1 or so. And I look at that and I think, really, that's a good price for honey.
Yeah.
If I'm not interested in where it's from or how the bees are, that's a good price. But I've heard horror stories about mass production. We'll have a chat about that in a moment, because I'm really keen to hear your perspective on it. It's really interesting. But I've been cooking. I was baking last night in my kitchen. And you've seen a picture of it. I'm a bit disappointed I haven't brought any in for you, aren't you?
A little bit heartbroken.
Yes, it's in a tin at home. I forgot about it, to be honest. It was nice. I thought it was slightly underbaked last night, but then I looked at it, I thought, no, it's just all the honey I've put in it. And it was... Tea loaves can be a bit sort of sticky, a bit dry, and a bit sort of, you need the tea. Do you drink tea otherwise it's too dry? But this one was really, really nice. Now, the thinking behind this is that it's this time of year. My mind automatically turns to cosy Sunday afternoons. I like the curtains drawn. I like something good on the telly or the radio. I like a nice cup of tea, and I like a nice piece of cake as well. And I think that tea loaf is absolutely ideal for this. So if you want to have a go at this, you're very welcome to. Let us know if you'd like the recipe. But this cake will keep in a tin for several days. So shall we head over and see what I'm up to in my kitchen? That very satisfying sound is the sound of the beater attachment on my mixer, because I'm creaming together brown sugar and butter, and I've used the butter warm, so I've pinged it in the microwave for a short while just to soften it up. But next I need a couple of eggs. There's already one in this bowl, and now there's two, and these are Lincolnshire eggs. They're from the guest a couple of weeks ago with the British blue. That's Fairburns. But I'm just whisking those up. Sorry, not whisking, beating. And now what I need to do is get the flour. I've already measured some flour out. And it's self-raising flour. I need a spoon as well. And I just need to add a sort of a tablespoon or so of flour, a little bit of... egg, about a tablespoon or so of the same together at the same time. So egg goes in first. A little bit of egg in with some flour. Go turn up the speed. A little bit of egg. A little bit of flour. A bit more egg. A bit more flour. A bit more egg. It's starting to really thicken up now. And the last of the egg. In it goes. And we can get rid of that bowl. And in goes the last of the flour. There's about 3 or 4 tablespoons left, but I'm just still doing it gradually. That's it, all the flour is in. So I'm going to give it a bit of a burst. There you go. I'm just going to have a quick scrape down from the sides of the bowl. It's looking really good, actually. Perfect. Now I need to add 2 tablespoons of beautiful honey. That's right, Humbug. Humbug is watching from afar. He knows not to come too near. He knows not to be a nuisance, and he knows which bits he can go on and which bits he can't go on. So he watches all the kitchen activities from afar. 2nd tablespoon is just going in. Is there anything as beautiful as honey coming off a spoon? It's just perfect, isn't it? Do you agree, Humbug? I think Humbug agrees. Humbug has a girlfriend, and her name is Minnie. But I'm not supposed to tell you that, because he's a bit shy. Baker's perk. I'm going to lick that spoon. Delicious. That really is nice. Nice Lincolnshire honey. And give that a quick whiz. Next I've got 2 bananas, and they're not as black as I'd like them. You know when bananas get really black and really delicious and really squidgy? That's the perfect banana for a muffin or a tea loaf, in my view. And these are kind of get in there, but they're not as mushy as I would like. There we are, going to add this in. They're all mashed nicely. This really makes me want a banana sandwich. I love banana sandwiches. There's nothing nicer. I say that about everything, there's nothing nicer, but a banana sandwich really is nice. Tell you what other sandwiches are nice. Crisp sandwich. I bet you didn't think I'd say that, did you? Just going to turn it on, give it a whiz. And I'd like a little bit of something in there, a little sort of extra edge of flavour. So I'm going to put some mixed spice or something similar in. I'm going to have a look in my cupboard, see what I've got. Yes, I have got mixed spice. I was thinking I didn't, but I have. I found some. So I'm going to put some of that in, around about a teaspoon. I'm just guessing, but really, if you haven't done this before, just measure. Easier to put more in than take it out. Here we go. Give it another mix. Going to give that a little taste. That is lovely. I'm going to pop a little bit more honey in there, about another tablespoon, because I can. Here we are, in it goes. And the other thing I'm going to add in there is some flaked almonds, because I think it will go really nicely. I'm just going to get some almonds. There we are, mixed almonds going in. Good sort of generous handful. And I'm just going to give that a stir with the spoon. And that's it. That is looking really, really good. It's a lovely consistency. I love tea loaves. Something very, very reassuringly traditional and old-fashioned about them. I'm going to put that mixture into a tea loaf tin. If I've got a liner, I will line the tin. But if not, a little bit of butter around the edge, bit of flour over the top, and it goes. That's going to cook at 180 for around about an hour, maybe a little bit longer, but I'll test it every half an hour. I'll touch the top. Once it looks firm, I'll be using a cake tester to see if it comes out clean. But that looks lovely. It did look lovely, and it tasted lovely, and I've accidentally left it at home in a tin, unfortunately, so I can't share it with my guest this evening, who is Paul Horton. He's from Apidae Honey at Winterton near Scunthorpe. And we're joined now by Gaynor, appropriately from Beesby. Hello, Gaynor.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Now, apparently, you're a fan of local honey, and it helps with your hay fever. Is that right?
Yeah, we've got a local lad in the village that has his own beehives. I always all my flowers in the garden are all single flowers so that the bees can get in and get the honey and whatnot, which is the main thing. And I always use his honey every morning on my breakfast cereals, and I'm much, much better with my hay fever.
That's very interesting. That works well for you. What do you reckon? I'll ask Paul. He's here. What do you reckon? Is that what Gaynor's saying about honey on her breakfast helps her?
It's local honey helps, and more importantly, getting honey from the time of year that you get your hay fever. So you want to make sure the honey is produced and contains pollen from the plant that's giving you the hay fever. So yeah, time of year.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Did you know that bit, Gaynor?
No, I didn't, but I know that it goes in the different fields, because of course it's a farming area, and he has his hives in, takes them round and puts them in different fields and this sort of stuff. So there's all sorts of different things go in there.
That's incredible, isn't it? Because very often I think the answers to these problems, like hay fever, are incredibly simple. They're not necessarily something you have to go and buy in a chemist. Sometimes there's a natural alternative that's worth trying.
Well, I think, I mean, I do have hay fever tablets, But I find that the honey, with the hay fever tablets and the honey, makes all the difference.
Lovely. And do you cook or bake with honey as well, Gaynor?
I don't cook at all because I've got rheumatoid arthritis and I can't.
Oh, that's a shame to hear. So you put it on your breakfast cereal, which
I put it. I have it on my Weetabix in the morning.
It's lovely, nice. I'm quite like a bit of natural yoghurt with some honey over the top or some flaked almonds. Delicious.
Yeah. There's all sorts of different ways that you can have it.
There is. It's delicious,
and it is very, very good for you.
It is. Thank you ever so much for ringing in, Gaynor. It's lovely to chat with you, and I love the fact you live in Beesby as well. I think that's fantastic. Perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, right, lovely. Thank you very much for listening.
No, thank you. It's lovely. That's Gaynor from Beesby. She was telling us about how she has the honey on her breakfast cereal, and it helps with her hay fever. That's good stuff. Which is interesting what you say about Paul. You mentioned about it being maybe the time of year as well.
It's time of year, making sure the pollen from the plants are there, and it's often good as well to, if you find a honey that does help, buy enough of it that you can keep a bit back for next year and start taking it a month before you start getting your hay fever, and then you can start building up an immunity beforehand.
That's genius.
So, yeah.
I wouldn't have known that. You're a mine of information, aren't you? Right, now your honey is all traditionally made. Mm-hmm. And you've got your hives and everything's done at nature's pace is how I'm kind of understanding it. But I want to hear about mass production. We mentioned before we were in my kitchen. Don't forget, if you want that recipe, give us a ring now. It's ready and waiting, 08000 665 949. That's for the honey tea loaf. If you'd like that recipe, give us a call now. We can send it to you, we can email it, pop it in the post, whatever suits you. But I mentioned before that you can go into these supermarkets, discount stores. There is little squeezy jars of honey, and it's £1, and it's not a lot of money. No. And I look at it, and I understand the difference between the two to a point in my layman's terms, but lots of people don't. But can you explain to us why that honey is so inexpensive? Because as I understand it, a lot of it's from China.
When honey's that cheap, when you're looking at £1, that is unbelievably cheap. The amount of work, energy and time, not just from me, the beekeeper, but the bees as well, that goes into it, £1 is shockingly cheap. And
someone's not making much money, are they really? But even if it's £2 for a big jar,
it's not enough.
No, it's not enough.
A lot of supermarket honey, if you read the labels closely, which I encourage people to do, because you can find out a lot when you look at the back of a label. The fronts are misleading, the backs tell you everything that legally needs to be there, and often a lot of supermarket honey is blended from European and non-European honey. So that means honey from all over the world. And there has been a problem with some honeys from the world for many years now, where it's being adulterated and blended with the sugar syrup. So it's not even a real honey; it's a fake honey, and this often finds its way into supermarkets, unfortunately.
That's really quite disturbing. It sort of almost sounds a little bit like, if you get a chicken nugget or scampi, and it's reformed and it's all sorts of things shoved together to look like something else. In a way, I find it slightly odd that honey blend isn't even from one source. What's the point of blending all these honeys? And do they put anything else in there?
Maybe not anything else, but I think the fact that it will have been heated up to maintain a clear honey, so it will have been heated to a point where it may have killed a lot of the natural enzymes that are found in locally produced honey or a good produced honey. It'll have been filtered probably under pressure, so a lot of the pollen that Gaynor was talking about that helps the hay fever won't be in these honeys in supermarkets, unfortunately. What
about the flavour?
The flavour, there are some really nice honeys available in supermarkets. This isn't all honeys, but some, unfortunately, are basically just a general sugary syrup, like you could mix yourself with some granulated sugar. There's no complexity there. There's no floral flavours or anything complex. It's just a sugar syrup, unfortunately.
Doesn't seem like a great deal of point to them to a certain extent. And I saw something in the news a couple of weeks ago, which you mentioned isn't anything news, about the testing on honeys and how some of them they've got sugar in them, added sugar.
I think certainly from importing from places like you said, like China, there is an ongoing problem where this honey is being bulked out with a sugar syrup just to make it go further, and it's been a problem for decades now. And as you said, there was a news article recently I believe a university somewhere tested hundreds of honey from all over the world, and I believe they found about 30% of European honeys were adulterated with sugar syrup. I believe Australia and New Zealand it was something about 20%, and China it was nearly 60%, which is an incredible amount, really.
See, I find that really quite sad, because you think you're buying honey, you think you're buying a natural product, you think you're buying something that's as natural as, you know, the carrot you pull out of the ground, and actually what you're buying is something that's a blend of from not just several different areas, but several different countries, and some of it's has got extra sugar in it. It's really depressing. But yours, on the other hand, because I know you'll bring yours straight from the what are those panels called that you pull out of
the frames of honey, the honeycomb frames,
And you've got some there to try. So let's talk about your honey in particular, because yours, you've just got the amount of awards you've got is frankly ridiculous.
I haven't got the awards. The honey and the bees have, really. So I have no hand in it, really.
You're ever so modest. You're ever so modest. What have you got? What have you got there? You've got a little box there and some spatulas. So tell us about your honeys.
I've brought you 6 of my favourite honeys that I produce. I specialise in actually targeting certain floral sources to produce single origin monofloral honeys, and that means that each of my honeys tastes completely unique and different from each of my other honeys. So there's a range rather than just a single type of honey, which many beekeepers do produce. They leave their bees in one place throughout the season, and the bees collect pollen and nectar from lots of different floral sources over several months, and that honey all gets mixed together, which isn't a bad thing. These honeys are very nice and complex flavours, but you miss a lot of the subtleties in the flavour that my honeys have, because I'm targeting individual flowers, in a sense, or types of flower. Yeah.
Go on then, let's crack one open. Which one do you want to tell us about first? I'm going to get a little bit of... There we go.
I'm going to start you with the borage honey, because it's the most delicate. We're going to work our way up from the sort of lightest and sweetest to the strongest.
And you say delicate, and the colour there is gorgeous. Can I have one of your little spatula things? I don't like putting spatulas in my mouth, though, so I should have got a spoon.
Should we?
So that's all right. Okay. So basically, now you say it's delicate. The colour, I can almost actually see through it. It's just... It's
sort of pale straw colour, very clear.
It is straw coloured. I was trying to find the right word. Let's have a...
And have a smell as well, because in many cases you may even smell the flowers that the bees have been working, and I know that sounds daft, but it's...
That's a lovely smell. That smells like proper honey.
So borage, obviously, blue star flower it's known as. You may recognise it from the flower that's in Pimm's.
I've got some in my garden. It's beautiful.
Grown for its medicinal oil, and it's probably the most delicate honey we produce. It's very subtle, and a lot of people that come up to us and say we don't like honey, which I always find it hilarious that they have to tell us that. We get them on this because it doesn't taste like a honey that most people expect, and it's just delicate, and people can...
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It's very, very delicate. It tastes very... I want to use the word old-fashioned, but I mean traditional.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. It's beautiful. That's such a lovely colour. So that would be very nice in a dressing, I think, because it's light.
Yeah. It's nice in teas and coffees, lovely drizzled on ice cream, things like that. It's just a nice sweetener, that one.
Now you're talking. There we are. That's beautiful. So the next one, I see. Now Paul has just brought the next one out of the box, and just if you've just joined us, this is Paul Horton from Apidae Honey, which is at Winderton near Scunthorpe, and we're just talking through the different the different. You can explain it better, can't you? You explain it better.
Different flavours, different textures, different types of honey that I produce. There's quite a range of flavours and varieties. And
okay,
let's
try that one.
So this next one is our blossom honey. This, I think, is our more standard honey. This is honey as most people would expect it. It's more of a golden colour, a bit more flavour than the borage you've just tried.
Yeah.
And we harvest this from apple and cherry orchards in the spring.
I was going to ask what particular blossom you've beaten to it.
A generic sort of orchard blossom, this one. Should be a bit more of a smell and aroma there to it.
Oh, my word. Oh, that just smells heavenly. It's like it's almost like a more concentrated version of the first one.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Let's have a try of that. Then if you start telling me about the next one out. Let's go.
So the next one we'll be trying is a soft set honey, and this is primarily produced from oilseed rape. So that Lincolnshire is renowned for growing. So
that second one is beautiful.
So
it's
the next one,
it's like a more honey version of the first honey.
I think it's a good honey. It's a honey as you'd expect it, honey. That one.
That is stunning. That does taste more like the honey that I remember as a kid. That one.
So the next one, soft set honey.
I hate the word kid. I mean child. I can't bear people calling children kids. What am I doing? Right, so this is a soft set one. This always intrigues me. I mean, how is that soft set?
So depending on the flowers the bees have foraged on, the nectar and the sugar contents of each nectar will be different. And if there's a slightly higher amount of, I think with soft set, if there's a slightly higher amount of glucose, the honey will crystallise. And this honey is different. It's not a runny honey, it's a set honey. It's a creamy, smooth texture, buttery nearly. Do
you know what I want to do to that? I'd like to get a slice of proper handmade bread, white bread.
Yeah.
None of this sliced stuff. So proper crusty loaf. Toast it very lightly.
Yeah.
A touch of butter and a massive, nice chunk of that your soft set honey.
It's perfectly spreadable. I think you were bang on there. It is a perfect honey for toast. So yeah.
And if you were doing canapes or something, you could do something quite clever with that, couldn't you? Really?
Absolutely. So
just in between that, I've got a question quickly from Graham in Grimsby, and Graham is asking, what are the best plants to attract bees in the garden?
The best plants, borage. We've already talked about it. Borage is a fantastic.
Give us your next. I'll open the next jar while you're answering Graham's question.
The next one is a blueberry honey. That's from pollination work as well. But for Graham, I think we've talked about borage. It produces a fantastic amount of nectar and pollen. It flowers at a time of year where there's not much else about, so that's a good one. Sunflowers, bees love sunflowers, things like that.
I grow lots of herbs and things, and I always leave them to just flower, and then I leave the bees and whatever else to help themselves. So I've got mint, lemon balm, oregano. And also I had lovage.
So sage and things like that. They're fantastic. Like you say, if you leave things to flower. Most flowering plants, not all, but most flowering plants, bees or other insects do collect pollen and nectar from. So, just have plenty of flowers in your garden, and that'll help.
And not be too. If something gets a bit wild and a bit like my mint went bonkers this year, just let it be.
Yeah, exactly.
Let it be. Oh, sorry, I didn't actually. That wasn't intentional. So I hope that answers your question, Graham in Grimsby. If anyone else has got a question, by all means do call in 08000 665 949. We'll do this blueberry one. And what did you say, blueberry?
Blueberry, yeah. We take our bees down to blueberry pollination. When the bees pollinate fruits, you end up with a more perfectly shapen fruit,
That's got a very distinct, different flavour to it.
It does have a fruitiness to it, doesn't it?
It does.
Maybe not. You maybe can't quite taste the blueberries, but it certainly has a fruitiness to it. I think that one's perfect for drizzling over fruit.
So are we actually? So are these actual blueberry plants? Because I didn't realise we were growing any around here anywhere.
Not up in Lincolnshire. We travel our bees down to Surrey for those. Actually, we travel them a long way to go to that, but.
Oh, very interesting. So somebody in Surrey is growing blueberries and they use your bees for pollination.
Yeah, it can drastically increase the yields for growers, farmers and fruit growers.
That is incredible. I'm surprised they don't want the honey. But
They do have some of the honey as well. They give it out on their sort of open farm weekends and things like that.
Lovely.
So
Let's do another one.
Okay.
We've got two more, then we're going to give you a little rest.
This one is I think one of our most prized honeys. It's the Ling Heather. This is from North Yorkshire. Again, we're travelling our bees up to the heather moors up there. And this honey is completely different again. This is
just do this Ling Heather one. This is halfway between the set one and the soft. Oh, look at that!
It's more of a jelly-like texture. It's a thixotropic honey, and that means it is more of a jelly-like consistency.
That is incredible.
Much stronger, more of a caramelly flavour to it. It's a bit too strong for some people, but it pairs really nicely with cheeses and porridge and things like that.
It reminds me slightly of a fruit cheese.
Yeah.
I mean, and you say caramel. Caramel's a good word for it. It's a little bit of a browner taste, if that makes any sense.
Earthy, I think.
Yes,
an earthy taste.
It is.
It is quite a special honey, though, Heather. There have been tests recently in Belfast, I think, that have proven that heather honey has as many good properties as Manuka honey. It's as good in its healing properties, in all its antioxidants, in all things like that. So it's up there with Manuka, which is actually obviously a renowned honey for being special in its healing properties.
It is. Wow, crikey. And what's this last
So
one
this
here?
last one, I'm hoping this is going to absolutely blow you away, this one.
They've all blown me away.
This is
They're all stunning.
another type of heather from a different species of heather plant, and this is bell heather.
What I find particularly interesting is they're also very, very different.
Yeah, completely different tastes, completely different colours and textures.
This is bell heather. Now this is dark. This is the colour of something like a dark golden syrup.
It's sort of a crimsony red.
Yeah, getting towards molasses, but.
So have a sniff as well. It's.
Oh. God, that smells different, doesn't it? I'm trying to think what that smells of. I know it's heather, but
nearly almondy. You nearly smell flowers. I think it's very, very strong honey. This
it's floral, isn't it?
It is very floral. Nearly herbaceous in flavour. It's
that's quite incredible. We go.
It's quite a complex honey. This one. Yeah.
Oh, that is really unusual. I've never tasted anything like that before. It behaves differently in the mouth as well.
It changes.
It's moving across the top of the roof of my mouth and then disappearing. It's by puffing into thin air at the back. It's really, really unusual. I'd have to do that as maybe in a dressing.
Okay.
Do you know what that would be nice with? Chinese 5-spice and soy. And so I'd get dark Chinese 5-spice, round it, cook it. And then a bit of soy while I'm cooking it. Right at the end, just before I serve it, I drizzle that particular one over the top.
Sounds good.
It tastes savoury.
It is. It does have a savoury taste to it.
One last question before we go give you a quick break. Philip in Gainsborough, he's saying, how much would one of your jars of honey cost compared to the supermarket jars?
So our lower end honeys, our blossom and our soft set, we can charge £4.50 for those, and we sell that through our website, delivered, or you can come and see us at events. Our more specialised honeys like the blueberry and the bell, those would sell for £5.50. So it's not an astronomical amount of money, but it really is paying us for the amount of work that me and the bees do.
And these aren't honeys that particularly, I think the last couple, I would use that for a particular dish, for a particular effect. And a jar this size in a honey of a fairly kind of, common or garden, I've done a pun again, would perhaps be £2.50-ish, do you think?
£2.50, £3, something like that. You're not getting any of the flavours there,
I hope that answers your question. That's Philip in Gainsborough. We're going to give, thank you very much for your call, Philip. We're going to give Paul a short break. And so this is Paul Horton. He's from Apidae Honey, which is at Winterton near Scunthorpe. We're learning absolutely loads. We're running out of time, aren't we? But we can chat more with him in a moment. And we've got so much to learn. I'm really enjoying it. Hope you are too.
I tear out the pages that I've got in these books, just to find just some words, just to get some reward, and I'd show you all the photographs that I ever got took, and I'd play you old 45s that now mean nothing to me. And you're a real gone kid. Maybe now, baby. 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 I'll do what I should have did. Now I've stood on your shadow.
Real Gone Kid, Deacon Blue. It's Lincolnshire Kitchen. It's 7 minutes to 8 and we're having a wonderful time with the honey this evening. I've learnt a lot. It's really, really good. I've got a couple of events for you before we chat with the guest again. And on Saturday, it's the Lincoln Sausage Festival in Lincoln Castle. It's 10 till 5. Now, I particularly wanted to mention this because do you remember last week's guest, which was Gelston Lamb, which is near Grantham at Gelston, and we learn a lot about them. They've got a closed flock of 450 sheep. They will be there. So if you go along, go and say hello to them. Say, I heard you on Lincolnshire Kitchen, and go and say hello. And like all these producers, they love to be asked questions, so go and have a chat with them. Also there will be Red Hill Free Range Pork, and I believe it's Retail of the Year. They're fresh from the Select Lincolnshire Awards, which happened last night, and they won a prize, a category, an award, which I believe was, top of my head, Retailer of the Year. So go along and congratulate them as well if you can. That's Jane. She's been a guest on Lincolnshire Kitchen as well. And also she's got a sausage supper campaign. I'm going to tell you about that at some point, hopefully next week. But she'll tell you about that as well. That's being launched as well. There's two nights, so that's a nice event for you on Saturday. But tomorrow, Thursday the 11th, and don't forget it's the Gainsborough Old Hall Beer Festival. So tomorrow, 7 p.m. till 10:30, Friday to Saturday, 12 till 10:30, free admission, and it's a 3-day camera beer festival in the Great Hall of Gainsborough Old Hall, which of course is the unique 15th century manor house north of Lincoln. I've been there on Pirate Gold. I absolutely loved it. And also at Alford Manor House on Sunday, Apidae in the house. That sounds brilliant, doesn't it? 10 till 3, you can go along there. So lots and lots of lovely, lovely foodie events for you to enjoy. Now, my guest this evening is Paul Horton. He's Apidae Honey, which is Winterton near Scunthorpe. Paul, we've been talking about these honeys, and I mentioned about, I've got a wooden spatula, but you were telling me that actually the metal of a metal spoon in the honey isn't ideal?
Well, not necessarily not ideal, but different materials can affect the taste of the honey, and different containers, even glass, plastic, and metal, and things like that. Someone asked me recently what would happen if we started storing honey in an oak barrel, like you would a whiskey or a wine, and I honestly don't know the answer, but it might change the taste, it might change a lot of things, but certainly no one's done it yet, but it's an interesting thought. I
kind of imagine that the oak would benefit more than the honey.
I don't
know. Maybe there's an experiment for you there. We touched upon pollination and about encouraging bees, growing things in your garden, encouraging bees. And you mentioned that you people with crops and orchards and fruit, they use your bees for pollination.
I like to think, I work with farmers and growers. I certainly couldn't do what I do without farmers, and they do look after me. And actually, what I do and my bees do, it does help them. It improves their yields and hopefully makes their businesses a slightly bit more, sustainable and helps them even slightly. I like to think that's a.
I should think you're fairly critical. Actually, I think you're being extremely modest because surely you must be critical to them. I mean, they obviously they wouldn't, sort of commission you to take your bees up there.
Well, it's true. It does help, and I'm proud to be part of it for them.
And you've been on the telly recently.
Yeah.
Want to mention that?
We were on BBC's A1 Britain's Longest Road a week today, actually, last Wednesday.
Which is a coincidence. I hadn't quite twigged that. I'm normally in here on a Wednesday.
So it's still on the iPlayer, and that will, if you watch that will show you behind the scenes what we do. That shows us moving our bees down to apple pollination, actually. So you'll see what we do, and you see what our bees
I'm going to watch that. Now, if anybody wants to meet you, come and find you, what's your website address?
It's apidae.co.uk, and that's APIDAE, and you can find us on social media at Apidae Honey.
And where are you stocked? You've got a list of stockists on your website, haven't you?
Yeah, we supply a wide range of shops and bakers and butchers around Lincolnshire, and we do a few events throughout the year. The next one we've got coming up is at Lincoln Showground, the Food and Gift at December.
That's beginning of December, I think, isn't it?
1st and 2nd, I believe.
Yes, no, that's really, really good. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I mean, it's just fascinating. And I had meant to ask you if you cook.
A little bit. We do use our honey for roasting vegetables, things like that.
Honey roast parsnips.
There you go, delicious.
But I think you put it on at the end.
That's right. Yeah.
No, so I don't actually ever cook it in the honey. I just put it on at the end.
Yeah, that's right.
It's brilliant, isn't it? And also, but I must say thank you to you as well. I mean, you've been so... the time flies in here, doesn't it? Another bee pun for you. I'm full of them, aren't I? It's been really, really interesting. So thank you so much for your company this evening, for coming in. It's been brilliant. And these honeys are absolutely beautiful. The colours are amazing. Nature has all the colours, doesn't it? Well, Lincolnshire Kitchen is going to be different next week. I need to tell you about that. I don't want you to miss out. So you're used to me being on a Thursday, and then I moved to Wednesday. So I'm now Wednesday, 7 p.m. Some very nice news for you. As of next week, Lincolnshire Kitchen is going to be extended. We're going to have 2 hours for you from next week onwards. So you can be with me from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. which is just really, really exciting for me. We've got some things planned. We're going to be fairly gentle to start with. I have got some things planned, which you are extremely welcome to sort of, join in. Because this is your show. This is all about the cooks, the makers, the bakers. And it's about you. It's about you at home with your kitchen, in your kitchen, cooking up the things you like, hopefully being inspired by Lincolnshire Kitchen's guests. It's very, very much about you. If there's something you would like to hear on Lincolnshire Kitchen, we've got twice the time now. And I really, really would love to hear from you. You can email me, amy.claridge@bbc.co.uk. If there's something you would like to hear, let us know. This is your show as much as mine. I'm just a facilitator. If there's a producer you'd like to hear from, if there's a particular type of recipe you'd like to investigate, anything like that, do just give me a shout, because I really would like to include it. What we're going to do is have more guests, which will be rather nice. We'll have more guests for you. We've got a special feature about retro recipes, which I'm beside myself really, really looking forward to doing that for you. And it's going to be great. And it's going to be extra Lincolnshire Kitchen, which is lovely to do. Because you know what? This week particular is the 2nd anniversary of this show. And it's been two of the loveliest years of my life. It really has. And it's just joyful, all the things I've done. I'm going to try and do a catch-up later in the year of some of the things we went to, the pea vining, and it's just so many guests. But it's been lovely. So next week, more of the same, but twice as much. Now, after 8 o'clock after the news at 8 o'clock, Johnny Anson's looking after you, but next week it's me for an extra hour.
In Lincoln, Boston and Grantham.
BBC Radio Lincolnshire.
BBC News at 8 o'clock. I'm Matt Soanes. 2 men accused of preparing to build a bomb for a terror attack in the run-up to Christmas are facing a retrial after a jury in Yorkshire failed to reach a verdict. Sheffield Crown Court had been told the men were trying to build a device involving a driverless car. Michael Henderson has more.
During their trial, the court heard Andy Starr, who's 32 and from Chesterfield, and 23-year-old Farhad Salah from Sheffield, wanted to build a bomb that would spare their own lives but harm others. They denied that. The jury couldn't come to a decision, so the jurors have been told they're discharged, they can go home. Prosecutors are now wanting a new trial, and the men have been remanded in custody.
A man's been jailed for a minimum of 17 years after being found guilty of killing his partner in Scunthorpe. 37-year-old Rawis Avliani strangled 61-year-old Tamara Sinikova in January. Hundreds of young people are at risk of exploitation in Bradford, according to a new report. It found that almost 350 children were at risk of being sexually abused in August alone. Councillor Adrian Farley from Bradford Council says a lack of money to prevent children being drawn into criminal gangs is an issue.
Finances is a concern. It's a concern for us as a council. If we had more money, we'd be able to do more things. I think for us, it's not just about money. It's about raising awareness, building resilience in our communities so that people are aware. They've got the skills then to report it to the right people.
Gay rights campaigners have expressed disappointment after the UK's highest court ruled that a bakery in Belfast did not break discrimination laws by refusing to ice a cake with a pro-gay marriage slogan. The Supreme Court agreed the owners of Ash's Bakery had objected to the message on the cake, but not the customer. One of the biggest storms in a century to hit the southeast coast of the United States is nearing landfall. Hurricane Michael is forecast to create a storm surge of more than 4 metres. Research carried out in Yorkshire has found that people know an average of 5,000 faces. A team from the University of York asked people how many faces they could recall from their personal lives and the media, as well as a number of famous faces that they recognised. Dr. Rob Jenkins is from the Department of Psychology.
We think it will tell us more about how the mind works. So if you think about a parallel case, say vocabulary size in reading, the number of words that someone knows actually turns out to tell you quite a lot about their other cognitive abilities and how those unfold during development, say. And we think we'll be able to say similar things about faces.
In sports, York City have appointed caretaker manager Sam Collins on a permanent basis. He's been in temporary charge since August, following the sacking of Martin Gray. Weather tonight, a warm evening, dry and clear, a few showers by dawn, lows of 10 degrees Celsius, that's 50 Fahrenheit. Tomorrow, overnight showers should clear away to leave some sunshine for a time. However, there will be outbreaks of rain in the afternoon, highs of 19 degrees Celsius, that's 66 Fahrenheit. BBC News.